welcome to another podcast of Paranormal Pursuit News. We got Robert, Angelique, and Sandy, all four of us here today. And we are going to talk about ghosts, apparitions, people that perhaps have hauntings in their house, the different kinds of ghosts. Robert and I are paranormal investigators, and as you all know, Sandy and Angelique are psychics and seers, and we all have some empath to us. So I guess what should we talk about first? What do you think, Robert?
I think we should talk about how when we do think we're experiencing a ghostly visitation to our homes or somebody haunting it, how real is it and how do we know it's really happening to us? I mean, how do we authenticate that?
Authenticate? Well, we mean Sandy and Angelique could say from their side, but as you know, Robert, as a paranormal investigator, we have certain tools that we use for that. We use a flashlight that they could use to turn it on and off. We use EVPs that we take the tape recorder or your cell phone and you could just hit record and you listen back. So for me, for the average person that doesn't telepathically talk to ghosts, or if you're not physically seeing them, which has happened before, we've all physically seen ghosts before too, I think using the paranormal tools is a great way for the average person. But then again, if like your water turns on and you're like, okay, can you turn that off, please? And it turns off. Pretty good indication.
That's a great
maybe Maya, you can explain what EVPs are. I'm not sure if everybody knows what that is.
Oh, well, the electronic voice phenomena. It's just like a lot of times what we see and we hear when you use a camera or you use a recording device, it picks it up. And you don't hear it with your naked ear or your naked eye. But, I mean, I'm sure if a good thing for people at home to do is if your cat's kind of looking at something, your animal, or you think you see something, take your cell phone and just record for a little while. A lot of times you see orbs going right through it, especially if you have an animal.
And orbs, yeah. And why don't you explain what an orb is to in layman's terms, which is...
Well, I mean, one of Angelique or Sandy picked that one up.
Go on, Sandy.
Go ahead, Angelique.
They're plasma. It's plasma. Yes, plasma, light beings.
And it's just
little round spheres that sort of
I've
glow.
seen them different colors, too.
I've seen them different colors, and occasionally, sometimes if you zoom in the picture, you can actually see like faces and stuff actually inside. But they're usually present when it's a very loving spirit, not something of a darker nature. So they because love is the highest vibration.
Well, why do you think there'd be orbs? Because I know there's kind of some orbs that are just pure energy that never were people. But I've seen some angry orbs, some bright red orbs.
I don't consider. I've never seen red orbs.
Oh. If I find pictures, I'll add them to this. How about Sandy? Have you seen?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, first of all, what I tell people about orbs is it's almost like, when you close your eyes and you see floaters, except your eyes are open. So that's a very similar image to kind of describe. And yes, they are different colors. And I have to tell you, in my experience, though, the colors that the orbs are presenting themselves in didn't necessarily represent the emotion. So, for instance, the red didn't represent anger. To me, it in my exchanges with them, it represents energy formation for them, not necessarily emotion.
Okay, that's interesting because and I could put some pictures in it when I had done an investigation one time with my sister, it was a little Native American girl and she wanted to get her story out that like her family they had gotten, their village was burnt down and when she touched me, it was a Native American. It was so different. I knew she was upset because she just wanted to get her story out. And then when you saw that orb coming off me, you see me go, oh. If I have the video, I'll try to cut it in. And that orb was bright red coming off. But I knew as a little girl, we got pictures of her. We heard her voice. But I think that in that moment, she was,
You don't see the orbs with your naked eye ever. I do. You do?
I have, especially if it's not that bright. I've seen them before.
It's darker at night.
But if you hold up your camera, I'll see them going right through it.
I've picked them up on video a lot, and I've picked up amazing orbs in photos. So people would say, well, okay, it's dust, it's reflecting, it's a flash reflecting off a piece of dust or an insect or whatever. But you're saying that it's a manifestation of energy itself.
Yes.
So
some of them are that. You have to debunk it.
And you can see around animals. Like I remember when my son's puppy, and I said to him, "There's all blue light coming off this dog," and actually then I started taking Fitz pictures, and then for about 6 weeks she had light blue orbs all around her.
That's
and she is really special. She's a sweetheart.
Oh no. Angelique and Sandy, you both do readings for people. Me, that happens when I'm just with a friend and their deceased loved one chirps into my ear, and I'm like, all right, they're not going to think I'm crazy if I tell them, hey, I'm not as confident as you two are in that sense, but you guys do it full time. When you guys are doing a reading for somebody, is it always, is it if there's a ghost in the house, does that ghost come forward? Is it usually a loved one that passed away, their guide, an ET? What is your experience there when you're doing a reading?
All of the above.
Right. Everything. Can be all of it.
All of the above.
All of the above.
And how do you decide which one gets to talk?
It's just flows. One presents itself, and it's sort of the stronger out of these other beings, and that's it. It's like, well, there's time for everybody, so get in line. And that's kind of how it works.
Sometimes it has to do with the position of the being or the spirit. If they, in their level of ascension, they've been, as they're ascending before they totally cross over and review Akashic, if they've been assigned a job, and that job is to come forth to communicate with us, to deliver a message that's considered imperative, then they will supersede other beings trying to come through. There's several factors that go into who comes through first. That's one of the factors. One of the other factors has to do with us and our emotions. If it was a recent loss and there's heavy grief, that impacts spirit to be able to come through too. Another factor is where are they on their ascension ladder? There's 8 to 10 levels on the other side. Are they just beginning, or are they almost at the final level when they're going to meet their creator? So there's so many factors who can come in and when they're coming in, et cetera, et cetera.
And also they know how much time you have. It is the most curious thing.
Right. You said that they show up before you even start the reading.
Right. Or it's like, oh, this is going to be an hour. Okay, we've got time. But if they know there's a connection that can be made really quickly, they'll impart that first.
Right.
It's really interesting because it's almost like there's a small window and it's going to get cut short for whatever the reason. Haven't you found that, Sandy? It's fascinating.
And it's almost ironic. It's almost like an oxymoron because
there's no time.
We here on this plane we understand time in a linear fashion.
Right.
There's no time with them. So it's almost, it's kind of interesting how they can read our time frames and our restraints. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, because a lot of times you hear people talking about how they see little kids. A lot of ghosts happen to be little kids. And I have to wonder, and I've had a lot of experience with kids. I mean, do they not know that they're dead? I know that could happen with adults too, because why wouldn't that child go straight to the light?
I don't think it matters the chronology of the being that's crossed, whether it's a child or an adult. I don't think that necessarily is what dictates the rapidity with which they ascend. Again, I think there are other factors like explained earlier. And I know when I do, when I do a lot of connections for people, what usually comes through first is animals and what I call baby souls. So those that had not been birthed or up to about 2 or 3 years. And they usually tend to come in first because their energy is much more pure. They haven't been tainted by the contracts and the life lessons that we've been learning as adults.
I'm talking about like ghosts in house or ghosts at a place. So you're not doing a reading. It's just, your friend keeps seeing a little ghost in their house, or I have a friend right now that says they keep seeing this little kid running, in and out of their house. So in that kind of situation, do you think a lot of them just don't know that they're dead yet, or they're just having fun, they don't want to go anywhere yet? Because I know our spirits, our souls are whatever age they are. So even if you die when you're 90, you may come back and look like you're 30.
Yeah. I'm definitely doing that.
Yeah,
I don't care.
But the kids that, or even adults. I mean, if they don't know that you're dead, one, I mean, Sandy, you're also a psychologist. One, do you tell them? How's that going to go? I mean, that's pretty shocking. Like, don't be me the bearer of bad news, but...
Because again, you can't violate free will. So maybe they are not aware that they're dead. They're traveling around looking for a loved one. Somebody died very accidentally. And
you tell them?
Well, the process is a little different. But I mean, a general thing is, so you bring something that's familiar, or a parent or a loved one, or of this, or their guides, or their angels, or all of the above, preferably. The more the better. They get a sense of recognition of these people, and then
wait a minute, you died 10 years ago.
And then you create this bridge for them if they want to cross. Mm-hmm. So it's just like holding hands it's like walking down the road with two kids in your hand, that's all. And you just create that, and then they will cross.
We call that
Andy,
the rainbow bridge.
Do you want to pick up on the ones that are afraid to cross? The ones that maybe did crappy things and they're afraid to you? Do you want to...
Yeah, and to piggyback what Angelique is saying, yes, there are also some souls. So that means the greeter, everybody has a greeter. So when you're crossing, there have been someone who's been assigned as a greeter. Welcome to heaven, here you are. Here's the road you're taking. But sometimes there's... I don't want to use the word error, but things kind of get mixed up a little bit. And maybe the greeter did not necessarily greet, or the being that's being greeted that's crossing is resistant and not accepting the message that they're crossing. So they kind of get stagnant in a layer, and they're just kind of hanging out. So yes, you want to bring as many as you can to help cross them. But again, some of them also are a much lower vibration, perhaps engaged in things that are criminal or very harmful. And their energy is very, very dense. And for them to cross, it takes for them to move through to get to the 8 to 10 ascended levels. So
those would be the ones that are haunting the houses.
Yeah. And sometimes you want to assist them because you want to tell them, get the heck out of here. Let me help you get out.
Right.
And there are ways to do that.
Sometimes you want nothing to do with them.
But I have to say, I from everywhere I've done, and it's been a lot of places, I've encountered maybe 10, 12 that don't want to leave, that don't want to go back, go home. Mm-hmm. It's very rare.
Lost, right?
Nearly everybody wants to go home, and they're lost.
Yeah.
So it's
a very confused. So I was pronounced dead twice in my life, and then they said, "Yeah, now you're going back." Yeah, twice. And I have some recollection
third time's a charm, but that's a weird silver lining. You know what I mean?
I mean, hang on. And I have recollection of those crossings. I do have recollection, not complete recollection. And so sometimes, it for some of the souls that are, as Angelique was saying, I agree, not necessarily that they don't want to leave. It's a very confusing state that you're in. And so there may be resistance, but the resistance may be coming from confusion, even if it's a lower vibrational soul. So they hang on to what they know.
They die from drug overdose or...
Yeah.
So are their minds muddled? I mean, is it almost like being intoxicated, let's say, where you're not in full control of your senses because, you don't realize where you are. You sort of know where you are or where you're going, but is that the feeling that they have?
Well, I think like a lower vibration energy is going to gravitate to a house or people where they drink too much, that they have addiction problems, because they need that. It's a low vibration, and they're very close to us here in our realm, yes? So they need something to feed. They can't sustain themselves.
That's interesting.
Up there on their light. So that's kind of what people call possession happens, yes, on various different degrees. But that in essence is it's souls that haven't crossed up, they're sort of stuck in this lower vibrational plane, like Sandy said. There's different layers. They find someone that's vulnerable, goes to bed really high, really drunk, just, whatever. Just not the happiest person in the world at the time. That is a perfect host for that spirit. But the beautiful thing is that the person that's kind of having this, whatever you want to call it, possession, attachment, I like to call them attachments rather than possessions. Sounds much better and easier on the person. Or agreements, it's like, is that the person who's having this agreement, this spirit agreement with, their soul wanted it as a growth anyway here.
It was probably subconscious.
Well, no, they made soul agreements to come down.
It's a contract.
And it's a contract that they've made with the spirit. Now,
we're going to get drunk together. I'll be alive, but you're going to be dead.
Right.
Together.
And the two together help them. Basically, the spirit will say to the person, when you start to get scared, I'll step in so you don't have to feel it. So it becomes like a best friend. And the one serves the other. And then what happens is eventually there comes times and opportunities. It's not always that way, but they can kind of outgrow those agreements. He decides to put himself into rehab.
What about the ones that pull your hair or that are like throwing bottles or
like poltergeists and stuff? Fire away, Sandy.
So, yes, there are those that will do things like that. Sometimes it's their futile attempt to get your attention. And, they'll do it any way they can. Like, hello, I'm here. It's not necessarily the best way to do it, but yes. And there are lower energies and lower vibrations that, remember, if they were living here on this plane and their contracts were to engage in actions that were harmful, that were of a very low vibration, they're crossing over with that until they finally cross and go to the light. So in the process, as they cross, they're still engaging in that kind of behavior. So they would attempt to, shall we say, connect with you with that type of behavior. I'm not a fan of all these different terms, poltergeist and possession, and I know that that's what people use to identify it. But I just refer to them as a soul who's lost and they need to help. They need help finding their way. Am I fearful of that? Absolutely not, because the only thing that we will be concerned about when we're doing, and I will use this for identification, depossessions when I work with people to remove entity. The only thing that will cause me to be in a position where I'm not protected is my own fear, because they feed off of that. And I have no fear. As long as I know that I'm doing, work in light and I'm not going to be harmed, that's how I walk into it. And I go, okay, come on, bring it on. Let's go. I'm in light. You're not.
Fear. Definitely.
You're going to lose. Yeah. So we have to be careful. We can't be afraid. Even if you're, in your home, if you have a house that you think is haunted, to use that kind of term,
you can't go in
fear. Yes, your fear will just feed the soul that's there, that's doing the haunting.
Right. And it's so much easier just to walk in and they kind of go, oh crap,
But I
and
think there's evil entities sometimes too. I mean, like, you guys know that one time where I got bit, literally, in the middle of nowhere, got bit, a huge bite mark where I'll try to put the picture up on my leg. And that was not a ghost. And I was not afraid. I was proud. Like, that cured me of being afraid. Because after that, I was like, how dare you? And I stepped into my light and protected me. And that wasn't something that just came out of, like, the abyss. Time stopped for a minute. And that was just some evil entity messing with me, trying to scare me, not wanting me to evolve more towards the light side.
Well, that yes, but I also, as a side note, just a thought.
Yes.
It can be, also for you, it's almost like a teaching on two levels. You're not going to walk in there and just be like, la, 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 anymore. Yes, you're going to have a little bit more focus before we walk in. But I think the second thing is, so now you can hold it's almost like becoming master of something. So
it got rid of any fear that I had.
Right, and we learn as we go, and now you can handle it. Would never happen to you again like that. Never. It's like you got the
Robert,
teaching.
have you ever been smacked or?
No, I think the only time I ever felt anything was on at the Shanley Hotel.
Uh-huh.
And I've said this before, and I've told you this, where we weren't even ready yet, but you had told me that there was a little girl there that was very strong. Mm-hmm. And I remember my sleeve being tugged, and it, I've never felt that
from the right height.
Yeah, from the right height. And you said that she would try to get my attention or someone's attention anyway. And so that kind of freaked me out. But in terms of ever feeling any contact or anything like that, no, I can't say I did. And I've gone on maybe 15 of these kind of investigations.
Well, I think with Robert, and I say this with respect, we know that you're skeptical, and so does Spirit. And they're going to go to one of us before they're going to go to you because of your skepticism. And, also something, an additional point, I think this is kind of what Angelique was saying. There's something really important that we need to say, and so that it would help others understand to reduce their fear, that there are universal laws on the other side, and they have to be obeyed by Christ and here on this plane. And the first law is nothing can invade your space if you command that it doesn't.
Correct.
And that's very important, because if you're in a home that's haunted, or you feel like this spirit is coming to you and bothering you in a non-playful way that's not fun, then you need to say, with intent, you can't have fear, you absolutely are not allowed in my space, nor are you allowed to be near my body. And it has to be obeyed. Where people kind of lose it is the fear comes in. So, I think that's important to let people know out there. Like, don't be afraid. Really, you're okay. Yeah. You really are protected.
You have to know that you are protected, but you have to be the one to say it.
You have to believe that you are. And Robert, I think they just think you're skeptical. So we're not going to waste our time with him.
Well, look, as I've explained before, I'm very open to this. Obviously, I'm here, and I made an instant connection with Maya because there was just that, and I just felt that there was something there, like, hey, here you are again. I don't know if I can explain that correctly, but it was like we've known each other, and we met the first time at an investigation. I actually called up her and her sister and sight unseen and said, we need a New York paranormal group to help us out with a video for the newspaper. And that's how it happened. So I'd like to think all this is true, and I don't disbelieve what you tell me sometimes. But all I'm looking for, as I've said this before, is I just want proof before I come out and say, well, this happened because of that. There are coincidences. There are insects that do appear as orbs. The flashlight was kind of fun, where we would ask questions, or you would ask questions, and then it would give you a 1 flash for yes, 2 for no kind of thing. A skeptic or a real skeptic, I guess, because I'm an open skeptic, would say, well, it's just the wires are loose, because you do loosen the flashlight a little bit in order to have it flash. And it's just doing a natural rhythmic thing, and it has nothing to do with the questions we're asking.
I've left that in the same way for hours and hours and hours and nothing. Mm-hmm. And then other times I've done it in the heat, I've done it outside in the cold. And I'm definitely a believer of that. And plus we've gotten orbs and EVPs right near too. And that's an easy way for some entities that don't have the strength to make themselves into a full apparition, or they don't have the connection that the person, there's nobody there to receive their messages. It's an easy way for them to communicate.
Right. And look, I've gotten, a million, dozens of good EVPs that freaked me out. Yeah. I still get goosebumps when I listen to them. They're on my computer, and it's almost like they're responding. The little girl at the theater I told you years ago, where there were 2 women who said they were sensitive. One was with the paranormal group, and one was the woman who ran the theater, who I didn't know well at the time, and she told me, I'm sensitive, can I just watch? And it was like stereo psychics, and they were both picking up the little girl. They both saw her. And then as the head investigator was recording this on microcassettes, regular tape cassettes, not even digital, she would play it back, and you hear the little girl responding and saying, Mama, it makes you stop.
It's you can't deny that. You can't. No. What do you guys think about the difference between if it's a ghost or an ET, an alien?
I love it.
It's all good.
But I mean, do you think sometimes when people think that it's a ghost, it's actually an ET?
Absolutely. And so I'm sure that your next question
showing themselves? Are they just like, because they're in physical form a lot of times? Do you think it's the ones that are in physical form that are just kind of sending a hologram down to themselves, or ones that are a different vibration that aren't energetic? Both?
Both. And then some.
And yes,
I want to see a
agree.
physical one. I've seen two ghosts physically before. Like physically, I saw them plain as day. And I've seen a couple of light beings that were more like, an apparition that I knew were ETs. But I think it'd be cool to see an ET like
in human form.
I mean, maybe we're all looking at ETs right now at each other, but you know what I mean. Like, right, one that you don't know. That just
They do present themselves. If you ask them to, they will present themselves in true form. But you have to remember, many of them, their true form, not Arcturian, not Palladian, others, Lyrians, their true form is, our comparison can be
formless.
Yes, can be almost very frightening in appearance because it's something that is so unfamiliar for us. And so they don't show themselves that way to you for the fright, to not cause fear. And the other reason is their intensity of light is so strong.
Very high.
A very high ascended level that they appear and they kind of dumb it down a little bit for us, because it can also overwhelm us.
We can short circuit.
Yeah.
Actually, this is what, because you just said short circuit. This is what came into my head. Do any of you ever get, and it's not tinnitus, it's not that, because I know that I'll get sometimes, it's this high pitched ring. Not tinnitus, because it's not in my ears. It's like above, and I'll try to listen to it. I'm almost like, all right, are you trying to download me? All right, this is what I need.
It's rewiring.
That is a download.
It's download and rewiring.
It is a download. It is an activation of the pineal gland. It's a download. It's a change in cellular structure. I tell all my students that whenever I'm teaching classes, that is a sign, a very sure sign of your progression in the spiritual development. That it's not tinnitus. It's also a form of communication. Right. Sometimes it's because
they're all the time, and it'll be like a minute long, sometimes like 4 minutes long. Usually not much longer than that.
It's a download. They're infusing you with a higher vibration of energy. The other thing too is you have to remember. You have to also remember that we have limited hertz. So extraterrestrials and souls that are crossed, they expand the hertz that they're able to produce. We're limited, so sometimes it comes in as this tinnitus type of sound because our ears can't function
hear. Right.
The level of hertz that they are able to impart.
It's such a specific sound. Like it's high pitchedness is not like how they do like that ear test when they do the doo. It's not. It's such
it sounds. Could it be faint?
Yes.
It's almost faint, but
it's almost like right on top of you. Right. It's like That's have you ever gotten that, Robert?
No, I do. I don't know if it's light flashes that I see. Maybe
that'll
different.
do it.
I mean, I've had ringing in my ears, but that could be a million other reasons. But there are times, and it could just be bad vision, but light flashes when I'm thinking of stuff like this or whatever. And I don't know, I haven't connected it to that. I'm just thinking it's bad vision, let's say.
Do you ever get that feeling like there's almost like a real gentle, almost like a corkscrew?
Yes.
Like it's a gentle twist.
Kind of hurts though. It's annoying.
It can be, so you can say just turn it down so it doesn't hurt. Like ease up, guys.
I'll feel it here, maybe. But
that's all of that opening up.
I thought it was my sinus.
No.
Well, take an Allegra and then you'll know the difference. You know.
Right? And you'll be like, with a big arrow.
You get that too.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's all it's energy. It's all about the energy, and it's all about them suspending the energy for us. Because as Angelique said, and she's absolutely right, it can be explosive. So they deliver it to us in different ways that our body can accept. Remember, most people function in 5 senses. Everything on the other side functions beyond that. So their ability to offer us energy and deliver for us, they have to work with what we work with, and that's our 5 senses.
Because we got to fine tune as well. Right. We're all evolving. So as we're holding space and we're growing, that it's almost like an update for the iPhone. We just got to keep getting our little updates. It's the same thing.
That's a good way. That's a good way to say it.
You know, so we're more band specific. So as we can bring more, because again, it's not about leaving your body to go out to get the information or anything like that. It's really just being here and being that access to it. I mean, there are people that can. I mean, right. I'm sure Sandy can do channeling, trance channeling, go to sleep and all that. We don't need to do that anymore. It's a different mechanism, but it's basically, you know, it's easier on the body. There's no lag time. We work, we feel good. It's not like, oh my God, I just worked. I need to go to bed for 2 days. I mean, it doesn't work like that. So anyway, yes.
Yeah, you know, I feel like you guys could all touch on this for people that have parents that have kids. And their kids are having their imaginary friends, which are not. I think we should probably give some advice to parents for when their kids are seeing things, how to deal with that. Because at the very least, you want the child to know how to protect themselves. If it's something that maybe, I think most of the time it's a guide or but, you know, sometimes it's not also. So would you guys like to touch on that for advice for parents whose kids are...
Yeah, I absolutely, I would love to talk about that because I do work with children. I do mentoring with them. So the first thing I tell a parent is please encourage your child. Do not tell your child, oh, don't let people see that you can do that, because that will shut off their gift. You know, we've had a wave of children coming in that are much higher ascended. And, you know, I've spoken about this before, that a lot of the, as a psychologist, a lot of the diagnoses, ADHD, autism, spectrum behaviors, a lot of those are correlated with and connected to children with higher energy. They just haven't found a way to express it. And I tell a quick story, and I'll make it very quick. So I was working with children, and I was a supervisor as a psychologist, and I had to go visit a program that was like very similar to like a BOCES program. So special education at a removed facility from the district, and they housed autistic diagnosed only. And I walked in with my partner, the social worker, and we walk in, and they start to tour us. And they're touring us classroom to classroom. And I'm going, I'm hearing chatter. And I'm looking around, and nobody's mouth's moving. And I turned to the social worker, and I said, you hear that? Are you listening to that? And she looked at me like I was crazy. And she said, there's no noise. What are you talking about? I realized that what I was hearing was the telepathic messages coming from the autistic students. And
to each other.
From that point on, it opened me up to be able to pick that up. It then altered how I worked with that population because I was able to communicate with them. And so
Were they talking with each other too?
Yeah, yes. But in a different ascended frequency that those of us in 5 senses can pick up. So, you know, go ahead.
No, I was going to just interject as we were saying about autism and high frequency. And I have found personally myself, I don't know about Sandy, but that the physically challenged, handicap, any one of those things, and you know, sort of physical disabilities, definitely they are of a much different frequency than everybody else. It's a finer frequency. I don't want to say a higher or lower, like one is better than the other, but they're definitely very more evolved than your average person walking around. And it's a very interesting thing because it's almost like they agreed to come in as a very, very high frequency being into a body that does not support them. So they're almost like chained into this body.
Right.
which is really sort of part of their soul agreement. So in other words, if you believe in reincarnation or whatever, the agreement would be, I'll come down into that family so I can help open their hearts, yes, because they're like, maybe they'll throw me in the home or whatever, whatever that is. And I'm going to pick a body that doesn't work for me, that I'm totally reliant. And while I'm doing that, I'm burning off 7 lifetimes or 10 lifetimes. Yes, your incarnation, your wheel goes exponentially because you've picked a vehicle to come in that's not going to support you.
And that may be the type of light that you like. I got to 20 years, that's at my limit, 20 years like that.
Right, but it's like, you know what? You'll clear 10, 15 lifetimes of going down in that body for that time. And they're always very, very high frequency beings. Haven't you found the same? They hold energy. They're really magical. Yeah.
Agreed. Totally agree. Absolutely. And so back to your original question, the best thing you could do for your children if they're evolving in gift is to encourage it and seek someone out who can help them, who can work with them and mentor them to help them on that journey.
When you were talking about autistic children or whatever, I was at a family gathering on Friday, and when I get together with the Cuban side, it's all women. Invariably, we start talking about subjects that we've been covering. I told them what I was doing. They were fascinated with the idea that I'm in a podcast with 3 sensitive women. And that I was the guy, I was the Scully trying to make everything scientific or whatever. But they know me and they know that, I'm the one who has the best ghost stories, basically, if you want to put it in those terms. But one of them was my cousin's kid, and she's got to be late 20s. And I didn't know that she worked as a nurse with disabled students, disabled kids. And she said that she finally learned not so long ago that they would freak her out because they would see things and say, oh, he's right over there. I'm talking to my friend or whatever. And then she realized that this is what they were doing. They were communicating, or they were able to see the other side, and that it was so common among them. And that didn't surprise me, I guess. I mean, it's not just a cliche in the movies then.
No.
Somewhere.
And they're communicating, particularly those that are on the spectrum autistic, they're communicating literally in a way that, again, if you're in your 5 senses, you can't respond and you can't interact. So it is a very different frequency. They're communicating. We're making big mistakes by labeling them in a way where we're claiming, well, they don't talk, they can't communicate. It's very
somehow it has like some negative connotation to it.
Well, most of
they're just saving energy. It's so much faster to talk, and when it's not.
By the way, at the same gathering, and this is just a little bit of a tangent, but it's on the same subject. So we're all gathered around a big table. We're talking. People are talking on this side. I'm talking to my cousins, girl cousins I haven't seen in the longest time. And as I'm talking, I just get the feeling that one of my aunts, my late aunt's neighbors, is looking my way. And I don't know if she's trying to listen to the conversation or whatever. Maybe she was interested, but then she goes off over there, and I'm still talking there. As she was leaving and saying goodbye, I just said, "Did you hear what we were talking about?" She said, "Not really. I know you were talking about certain things because of your aunt. My aunt was supposedly very strong, a very strong psychic before she died." And I said, no, I didn't say, "Do you believe?" I said, you feel things also, don't you? I said it to her in Spanish. She said, "Oh, of course." She points to her daughter, who to me seemed a little bit disabled. She was very quiet and shy and whatever. She said, "My daughter is the most powerful medium you can imagine." And then the woman just opened up to me and started telling me about my aunt's last days and how my aunt would always see. For years, I always thought it was my aunt would see these 2 men in the living room and wonder who they were. It happened that they were 4 guys, not 2. I had the story wrong, and they were her great uncles, and they followed her everywhere throughout her life.
Wait, to the aunt that came to me when I first met you?
Oh, her sister. Okay. Her sister was the one. But what I was getting at was I was able, because we were off on a roll, and I was talking about this stuff. Like, I say I'm a skeptic, but I was the one telling the stories. And then I just got the feeling with this woman that I've met maybe once before and barely spoke to. I got that connection. I said, this woman.
She knows.
She knows. I can't say one of us. She's one of you. If you know what I mean. And it didn't surprise me. It was like, okay, so I'm picking up on it. So maybe I'm one of them. I don't know. But it was a very strange feeling. This was just this last Friday, as a matter of fact.
What, like Sandy and Angelico said to me, it's like a tool. The more you use it, like if I'm around friends that their past one, loved one, and they have a message, I will hear them. They will, and I'll ask them for something specific that, like, there's no way I can, make that up. And sometimes it's weird because I don't know if it's my thought or their thought. But when it comes through, it definitely comes through strong. But that's just with friends because I feel more comfortable.
Right.
So, but like they say, it's like a tool, but like a muscle.
Right. Muscle. And I've said it before. This, Maya came up with that. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Maya came up with my aunt, and in a social setting, and then I go to the bathroom and I come back, and Maya's resistant to it, and she says, "Finally, look, she's just telling me she's your godmother. Say I'm his godmother. Say I'm his godmother," and she was. And so like I always say, that makes you pause. And
usually when it's people's loved ones, you could feel the love from them. So there's nothing, you know what I mean? Like, that they're not going to follow you home from the bar. You know what I mean? Like in that way, in that negative way. That like when I first moved to Manhattan, man, like the energy was so heavy compared to when I lived in California. And everywhere I went, they were just like, it took me a while to learn how to to clear your energy, remember?
That's
I think it's important to point out to everybody that, and I tell everybody this when I teach, that I'm no different than anyone, that everyone actually is born with this gift. It's part of your ability, and that it remains dormant until you seek the journey to seek it out. The cliche, all the answers you seek are within. Well, they are. And everyone is psychic. Mm-hmm. Everyone has the ability to be a medium. And I tell people the key is daily meditation, to putting yourself in that altered state of consciousness so you get rid of the clutter, so you can channel and receive what's being delivered to you naturally. And because people ask that all the time, and so you want to see the spirits? Okay, yeah, you can do that. Everybody can do this, right, Angelique?
Yes, I think and then contribute diet, certain other things you can pepper in there. But yes, everyone can. It's a muscle. We do the work, and you open up, and it's inherent.
And everyone can, literally communicate with spirit around them, whether it's someone in their home, whether it's that they've lost someone, to understand that the veil, truly what we call a veil, has been lifted. So there was a barrier between us and the other side, and it really doesn't exist anymore. So that communication is actually very easy to attain. And to attain it, you have to go into an altered state. So if you have a loved one that you lost, or anyone who's a family member or whomever, and you want to talk to them, you don't really need one of us to do that. You can do it yourself.
Or you can just go for a walk, even with a skeptic. But even as a skeptic, I think if it's that I've had it, give me a sign, show me you're there, throw me a penny, make it specific, show me a feather, let me see 25 coins because one is random. One is random, and you're in New York City, so there's plenty. Well, used to be, not now, but
exactly. Let me see a mask now. Yeah, you have to make it something specific.
So if you make it specific, Spirit wants you to believe, so you will get the signs. Now, maybe it doesn't come that, I just did it and I didn't see anything. Maybe it'll take a few hours or a day, and then wake up and do it again. And it will manifest, because it's designed to help us to open more, to sort of come more into our true nature.
And right now is the time to do it with all the stuff coming about the UFOs and UAPs, and it's, you're not considered crazy anymore if you talk about this stuff. And who cares what other people think anyway? But I think now is the time to do it. I mean, if we all do it the right way, 6 months from now, the podcast will just be all telepathic with everybody.
I think we should work on that for next week.
Right. Say a word and just look at each other.
Say what? Just stare.
Right. I've done that, by the way. I do that with friends sometimes. We'll like take a deck of cards, and I'll be like, all right, like, don't let me see pick a card. Don't let me see which one. I'll be like, all right, think the card. I'll be like, Ace of Hearts. And it's not always right, but I'd say like 1 out of 3 times, 1 out of 4 times takes practice too. Because you got to clear your head, and that's the hardest thing.
Yeah, and that's how to develop the skill. Like when the phone's ringing, before you pick it up, although we all have ORD, like try to figure out who it is. Or if there's a friend, tell them that, on this day at this time, I'm actually going to think of something, and you have to think of an intent. And then ask them at that day, that time, did you pick up on it? So there's so many ways to practice this skill,
right?
Beyond tarot cards and other divinational tools.
I think that before our next one, we should all think of a word and see if it's all the same one, and we'll write it down before the thing, and then we can. That could be fun for. All
right, like that. That's how telepathy.
Maybe it's going to be the same word or not the same word, or maybe it'll be similar, but that'll be interesting. Hey, why not?
You could try that. Why not?
Yeah, we can do it.
I like it. Yeah.